I'm Ron Greenberg, and together with my partner Todd, we're partners of Eagle Rock Wealth, and we're pleased and honored to join you. And hopefully we can add some value, give you some ideas and some information that you can use, not just for the year ahead, 2021, but even possibly to squeeze in some planning ideas for the end of this year. So we work with business owners from all walks of the earth, but have quite a good and pretty deep knowledge of the pool industry. And in talking with Isaac and some other fellow board members at Metro, have gotten a sense of what this year has been like for you guys in terms of product, equipment, busyness, and how compressed your season has gotten and how busy it's gotten. And it's obviously a good thing from a revenue and hopefully profitability standpoint. But with that success comes some challenges, right? We obviously all want to pay as little in taxes as we can. We want to sock as much money away for the future as we possibly can. There's issues of protecting your assets, not just growing them, but also protecting them, preserving them for your family, for next generation. So we thought, Todd and I and Rich put together an agenda here. We're going to just kind of take you through relatively quickly. We're each going to speak for about 15 minutes, and we'll leave time at the end for Q&A to talk about some strategies that will help you save money, save taxes, put money aside for the long haul, and protect yourselves and your families going forward. So I'm going to turn it over to Todd, who's going to go through a whole host of. There we go. If we want to get this on the. How do we get this on the large screen? Can I do that? Make it a little bigger. Hopefully everybody can see that. But Todd's going to kick things off with an overview of a host of different retirement plans and ways in which a number of you probably already have a 401k, a profit sharing, or plan like that. But Todd's going to go. It's just not going to go too super deep, but really want to scratch the surface and give you some good thoughts and ideas for how retirement plans work and how we can save on taxes and sock money away. And Todd, take it away.
Sure. Thanks, Ron. And then again, Ron and I are partners here at Eagle Rock Wealth, and then Rich is a partner in his firm on the CPA side. So thanks everybody for joining us, and really appreciate your time. I know it's very valuable this time of year, and congratulations on an outstanding year from what it sounds like, and what I know there's been a lot of pools being built. So I think that's good news for everybody on the call. A couple of quick things, as Ron mentioned, we'll stay relatively high level, but there is a lot of different plans that are out there, and that can be from time to time a little bit confusing, but we're here really every day throughout the year. So when you do have time, or when it becomes urgent, and we think it's always urgent, it should be something that you do at least approach, go through the process, and it's really just based on your goals. What are you trying to accomplish? Do you want a tax deferral now? When do you want to maybe take that money out? There's all different types of plans that fit all different types of goals when you're looking at pre-tax dollars or Roth, which is after tax. So starting with your goals and really your time frame and what you're looking to do, we can build and customize a plan for each one of you. With that said, traditional 401k plans, yes, if you don't have a 401k plan, you can still start one today. Some of your contributions might be limited for 2020, but there are some things and some options you can do. And a 401k is really the baseline, or one of the basic straightforward plans that most companies start with. And there's different rules such as safe harbor or contributions you can make, or there's plans where you don't have to contribute anything to the staff. There are some rules with that, and you may not be able to participate at the maximum amount, but in general, you can get tax deferral from traditional 401k plans. There's also a few different tax credits to set up a plan for this year in 2020 moving forward as well. So there's a lot of incentives right now in regards to 401ks. There actually is a law coming out in New Jersey by next March for employees that have more than 25 people, that it's going to be mandated that they have a 401k plan in the state of New Jersey, or they get the government plan. So we can highlight on that and kind of follow up on that. Again, with 25 more employees, that's the rule. So it is going to be a little bit more necessary than most to at least look at that if you're above 25 more employees. There are some maximums just on a 401k, 19,500 if you're under the age of 50, or 6,500 if you're over the age of 50. But then there's other plans that are larger if you're looking for larger tax dollars, larger tax deferrals. Profit sharing plans can go up to 50,000, 60 or 70,000, depending on how much you want to put away. It can even go a little higher depending on how many people, and that's all deductible right off the top line in profit sharing. And there's a cash balance plan, which is a little bit more dedicated. 401ks is almost a year by year scenario. Profit sharing, year by year, you make a decision. Cash balance is a little bit more advanced plan, but you can put away larger dollars. We're talking $300,000, $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 pre-tax right off the top line. Again, for a special, not for everybody. You do have to commit to at least 3 or 4 years to putting some of those dollars away. But again, looking for small dollar amounts off your taxes, medium size or large, there's a lot of different sizes of plans, whether it be 401k, profit sharing, which is a combination 401k profit sharing, or cash balance type defined benefit plan, if you will. So a lot of different sizes and styles, depending on what you're looking to do, large, mid, or small deductions. Then you can get into SEPs or simple IRAs or IRAs. Those are typically smaller number of people in a company, smaller deferrals, although you can see here on the SEP, 57,000 or 25% of compensation, whatever's less, as an example, whatever's less. So that might be one thing that, by year end, if you don't have a 401k, maybe you do a SEP contribution this year. Easy and quick to set up. And then for next year, maybe you start your 401k. You can't do a SEP and a 401k in the same year. So there are some general rules, but there's simple ways to set some things up and certain time frames. The idea really on a basic level is you can still set these plans up for 2020. You can certainly set them up for 2021. A lot more options in 2021, but there absolutely are some good tax deferral options still out there for 2020. We want to jump to the next slide just to run through some general numbers on this, not to get too long, but this is an example. And we tried to fit one in that made some sense. So if you're looking at the left-hand column, you can say, okay, this is a company, has about 10 employees. Maybe there's 2 or 3 owners, 7 staff, maybe you have some key people in there. But in general, this is the pensionable earnings, and 285 under the owner one is the maximum for this year of compensation. So even if you made $1 million, the IRS is only going to look at the first 285. This is called qualified plans. So any 401k, profit sharing, cash balance is a qualified plan, and there's rules to that. That's one part of what we do. And again, there's a lot of information here we're going to go over, but that's why, setting up some time and seeing what your goals are, where are we going to go with, what your plan design is, and we can help you with that. So pensionable earnings, maybe it's one of you earning 285, maybe a spouse making 150, and maybe a child making 70, or maybe there's a key employee in there somewhere, something like that you want to take care of. And then that's how much you're making. Deferral contributions is just their 401k, how much they are saving out of their salary or putting dollars away for themselves. That's the deferral contributions, if Jack wants to kind of highlight some of those items. Then there's safe harbor. You don't have to do a safe harbor. This is just one style of a 401k contribution where whether they participate or not, the staff gets 3% of their compensation. Why? Why would we do that? That's to pass a lot of tests to allow the owners or the key people here to put away profit sharing, a little bit bigger dollars there, where, hey, I'm able to put away 43,000, let's say for the family as an example, and then I'm giving away 14,000 as an example for the profit sharing, which is, hey, okay, that, doesn't look too bad. And then if you really get over why are we doing that, why are we putting the 3% in, why are we doing profit sharing? Well, that cash balance plan, or that plan that you have to be a little bit more dedicated to, only really for 3 years though, you can put away 250 and you're only giving to the employees or the staff 18,000. So in this quote unquote plan design, you get 100% deduction of the 341,000, okay, if you will, because you're paying them, they're deferring, some of them they're deferring there, but the majority of this money you're getting a top line deduction on, and you're deferring it, and you're on the top line here, 86%, you're getting 86%, 84 yourself, maybe 2 or 3% to the second owner or your spouse there, but 86 is going to your highly compensated staff, mainly yourself. 14% is really going to the staff, and you're getting 100% deduction for all of this money off your top line, potentially bringing your brackets down and deferring a lot of that money into years where maybe you're not making as much, or it's a slower season, you actually might lose because you bought a business or have a capital loss somewhere or something like that, where maybe at that point in time, where you retire, sell your business, maybe you take it out at that time at a lower tax rate. So just as an example, there's ways to build these plans where 401k is really a benefit for the staff. Profit sharing should start to benefit you, and a defined benefit cash balance plan is really a great benefit because you're already giving enough to the staff where the IRS is opening up a big window to save pre-tax dollars in, and it could be substantial over time. So it's something certainly to look at without getting too granular, just some great ways to save pre-tax dollars.
Can I jump in for 1 second on this?
Yeah, I wanted to pause there for questions anyway, Ron. Great job.
Yeah, no. So everybody should, click the Q&A button there if there is, and we'll catch them all at the end. But just very quickly on this, 2 very quick points. A lot of times when we run these scenarios, these spreadsheets, they don't look very favorable look this favorable. In other words, imagine if you were the owner and only 45 or 50% of the total contribution could benefit you and your partners, and the other 50% you had to put away was for everyone else's benefit. You wouldn't do this. We would suggest something like this where, from a greed perspective, for lack of a better word, you as the business owner can put away, 70+% for yourself. Number 2, and just very quickly on this, understand there's a vesting schedule for the contribution you make for everyone else. So that $46,000, almost $47,000 you're putting away, that bottom right number, yes, you're putting that away and you're deducting it and it's going for all your employees. But if employee 3 and 5 and 7, if they leave, that money comes back to the plan, comes back to you. So,
right.
You have if an employee puts their own money away and they defer their own money in a 401k, that's vested in there from day one. But anything you're contributing on behalf of your employees can have up to a 5 or 6 year vesting schedule, Todd?
Yep. The profit sharing can be up to 6 year, full, 5 year, full 5 years. You have to get to the 6th year, and safe harbor can be a 3-year cliff. So absolutely, a lot of that money we find, on the onset, hey, everyone wants to stay, but something happens, they move, they retire, they don't stay there that long, then those dollars get folded back into the percentages, which means you get back the biggest percentage and other ones get a little bit less, but the people that stay on the team get the benefit. The people that leave the team do not get the benefit. That money gets clawed back for the others. So it can be a nice little golden handcuff per se, or part of that. Also, it can be used as a buyout. So, maybe there's an older person in the company and there's a younger person that wants to come on and buy out. You can use this as part of the buyout where, maybe the second owner gets less there. They're only getting 0. The first owner is getting 250 and they get that for 3 or 4 years or 10 years, whatever the buyout is. So it can be like 5 years before they retire and kind of, folding into when they retire as part of the buyout. There's a lot of different ways to use this. And what's nice is you all get a nice tax deduction for it. So that's why we're on the call. So I think it's a good example here. We have another quick slide or two. So when I was just mentioning defined benefit plans, really, so defined benefit plan is also, you could have a straight defined benefit plan. The plan I was showing before is the cash balance plan. It's an option inside a DB plan or a style of one. Like I said, there's many other styles, but it's money that you get put in. There are a little bit more complex, but we're experts in it, nationally ranked in the country on them, and everything tests with the IRS and passes. There's no issues, and we've been handling a lot of these plans. So if you're looking for tax deductions, it's something certainly to take a look at, and we can help you there. So some action items here. There are some deadlines. So the traditional 401k really is December 15th, just so we have enough time to get it up and running and opening. You can still add a new plan, new comparability profit sharing. You can add in a cash balance plan for this year, 2020 still. So if this is your great year and a big year, you can still add in some of those items. Depending on where if you have a plan already, a SEP, an IRA, a 401k, we can see where you're at and what's eligible to open and continue to do this year, as well as personal planning, IRAs, Roth IRAs. A lot of people say, oh, I make too much money to put into a Roth. That's true potentially, but there's also what's called backdoor Roths, or you fund a traditional IRA. You don't get a deduction because you made too much money. Rich would tell you, hey, the CPA, you made too much money, so you don't get the deduction, but you can still convert that traditional in the same year, this next day. So you don't get a deduction, you convert it into a Roth, and then the Roth grows tax-free. So there's a few different tricks of the trade that we know that we can help you out. And if you're looking for tax deferral or tax-free growth, there's different ways to help you out there. And then really for 2021, the window's still open. We can still open a 401k, profit sharing, cash balance, defined benefit, simple or a SEP. But I really, pause for a second to say, whatever is really right for you in the right timing. There's a lot of clients that we start talking about now, and they don't implement maybe a plan until next year or the year after. It's learning what it is, what does it take. A lot of times it's who you run payroll through and different things, and then building out a plan that fits right for you. And just knowing that there's other ways to defer bigger dollars might not hit you today, but it might be, hey, that sounds good in another year or two. I get this taken care of, that taken care of. And then all of a sudden it's the right time. So a lot of it's goal-based and timing of what fits. On that note, is there maybe one more slide under mine, or are we jumping into the next section? Because I know my time is almost coming to an end here. One more slide, Jack, or is that wrapping up? Yep, so I think I'm going to hand it back over to Ron. Talk about next best thing to the retirement plan. Again, qualified plan is kind of my side of the ring. Ron's on the other side there with some non-qualified and some great vehicles on some of the after-tax or tax favored vehicles. Ron, hopefully that was helpful. Anything else I missed?
No, it's great. We'll have some time for Q&A for sure, and to go over some of this. So let's see if I can control this. I think I am there. Okay. Shared screen. Make sure I'm doing this right. Oh, there we go. Okay, so I'm going to flip to the next slide in a second. So the only thing I wanted to say about the IRAs, is to piggyback off something Todd said, is if you, for whatever reason, a retirement plan doesn't work for your business, and there are some businesses it just doesn't work for one reason or another. So if you don't have a company-sponsored retirement plan, you can, no matter how much money you make, contribute to an IRA and take a deduction. So you're limited on doing a Roth if you make too much money, but you can put money into an IRA, and so can your spouse if you don't have a 401k or any other kind of retirement plan. So obviously we want to deduct wherever we can. So, and these richer plans that Todd spoke of are ideal if, the spreadsheet looks right for you and you don't have to put too much money away for all your employees. So we exhaust all those things to the extent we can. And then we say, okay, what's the next best thing? The next best thing to being able to take deductions and have money grow tax deferred is to at least put money away and have, if it's after tax money, we want that money to grow as tax efficiently as possible. So we all know if we have a savings account or a regular brokerage account, investment account, and we have $100,000 in there and we earn 10% that year, what's going to happen at the end of the year? We're going to get a 1099 for $10,000, because if we went from $100,000 to $110,000, if that's your bank account or that's your investment account, you're going to get a 1099. Now, it might not be for the entire $10,000 because maybe you bought and held, but you're going to get a 1099. You're going to pay taxes. So ideally, we want that 10,000, 100,000, whatever dollars you're putting in to grow on a tax deferred or tax-free basis. So there are some things you can do, even though you can't take a deduction for these things, to make money grow on a tax deferred or tax favored basis. So we're going to just touch on a couple of these very quickly. And this is just to give this slide here, everybody can see that, I hope. This is a slide I put together many, many years ago, just to show people the difference between funds growing on a tax deferred basis and a taxable basis. So I'm going to try and get to the, if I can get to the, let's see, if I can move, let's see here, meeting controls. I don't know where the annotation slide is, but I want to, maybe Jack, you can help me with that. But if you take a look at what you have on the left side is 100 grand going in, growing at 8%, and it's growing and it's taxable. So you can take a look at 20 years down the road, if you put $100,000 in, you got 8% every year, and you had to pay taxes every year on that growth, you'd have $345,000 at the end of 20 years. The exact same $100,000 growing at the exact same 8% rate of return, where it was growing tax deferred, and you didn't get a 1099 each year, look how much more money you've got. 466 relative to 345, an extra $100,000 more, $120,000 more, or 35% more. And then obviously the bottom of this page shows you what the numbers look like at a 10% growth rate. It's even more meaningful. You're up, that 100 grand has grown to 466. If it's taxable, 672 on a tax deferred basis. So bottom line takeaway is money growing tax deferred is a whole lot better than money growing where you're getting a 1099 every year. It'll grow a whole lot faster. So here are a couple of ideas. Here's one strategy. If we can get to the next slide here. There we go. So this is a newer version, a more modern version of an old idea, an investment-oriented life insurance policy. But as opposed to your father or grandfather's policy, which was a whole life policy with Prudential or MetLife, and the insurance company took the money and they invested it in their general account, this kind of policy can get invested in the stock market. It can get invested in an S&P 500 fund, an ETF. It can be invested in a variety of different funds. You can be as aggressive or conservative as you like. And just to kind of walk you through how impactful the tax deferred nature of this is. Take a look at this. So this is someone putting in 42,500 for 15 years. Okay, so you're putting away that much money for 15 years. And if you look at, this is for a 45-year-old as an example. If you look at the bottom, what happens? After 15 years of putting money away, so from 40 to 45 to 60, you're putting that money away. And then at 65, you're able to pull out $100,000 a year tax-free for 15 years. So you're pulling $1.5 million out tax-free after putting in about, what is that, 480, about $1 million, 42,000 for 15 years, something with my quick math there. It's 600 grand. So maybe a little over 600 grand you're putting in for 15 years, you're pulling out $1.5 million tax-free. And the reason that this can work is that life insurance is a protected asset from a tax perspective. All the funds grow tax deferred, all the money comes out tax-free. And as long as you manage this kind of policy correctly, you'll never pay any taxes, because at the end of the day, when you pass away, death benefit or whatever's left in the policy gets paid out to your spouse or your family.
Yep.
So
Ron, I'll just chime in there. Yeah, 637,500, and then total retirement income 1.5 tax-free. So, excellent rates of return there. Yes.
So yeah, just a really tax favored vehicle. Now listen, not everybody needs life insurance or will qualify for life insurance. This isn't a fit for everybody. Just giving you an example of how impactful and how investment savvy and tax savvy this kind of vehicle can be relative to what you kind of might have traditionally thought of as kind of, life insurance is a bad investment. The more modernly designed products are totally different from the kind of old school whole life policies that have a lot of fees and expenses and it used to give you about a 3-4% rate of return. As you can see, this can be a whole lot more attractive and tax efficient. So we go to the next slide. Just going to go for about 5 more minutes here. There are annuity products out there now that again are a lot more attractive than annuity products used to be back in the day. Annuity products have kind of gotten a rap in financial press for being very fee sensitive. We're not big fans, Todd and I, in our practice of annuities in general. But in some cases, folks in their 50s and 60s can put some money away and have a very predictable, reliable income stream from an annuity. There are products out there that give you some guaranteed rates of return of in the neighborhood of 5 to 6% on funds that you put in. And if you wait 10 years after putting money in, you can put together a very predictable, reliable, guaranteed income stream that you can't outlive. So we did this for a client of ours where they put $500,000 into an annuity. 12 years later, that $500,000 was $1 million, and they were able to turn on the income spigot, so to speak, and pull out about 5% a year or $50,000 a year for the rest of their lives. And it didn't matter once they turned on an income spigot what happened to the investment. In other words, the market could go up, market could go down. They had a very predictable, reliable income stream from that annuity that was a good fit as part of their overall financial plan. So we're not in any way product peddlers in any, in saying that annuities are great products and everybody should have one. In the right set of circumstances where you've exhausted your retirement plan options, and you're looking for something to give you tax favored growth and a predictable, reliable income stream, these kinds of annuities might be an attractive vehicle for you to consider. So next slide. So I'm going to spend just a minute or two on this and we'll very quickly. A lot of our business owner clients say to us, hey, Ron, Todd, I got these 2 guys, I got these 2 employees. They're great people. I don't want to lose them. I don't want them going to a competitor. What can I do for them? How can I keep them? How can I handcuff them? And so I made this slide very, very brief on purpose, just to tell you, and I'll give you an example here in a minute. Jack, just hang on for a sec. We can put together what's called a non-qualified or non-retirement plan for just John or Jane Doe. Does not have to be available to everyone else. In these kinds of plans, you can absolutely discriminate and say, this is just for these 2 people, just for these 3 people. Don't have to include everybody else. And you can make it as attractive as you want to. You put in a vesting schedule. Let me give you an example on the next slide. This is a real example that we put together for an employer who's in the electrical contracting business. He had a key person. He said, I don't want to give him stock. I'm not going to give this guy any ownership of the company, but I don't want him going anywhere. How can I lock him in for 10 years? So this 40-year-old key person said, he said to this person, if you stay here for 10 years, you look on the bottom part of this slide, I'm going to guarantee you an $80,000 a year retirement income for 10 years from 60 to 69. So you're going to have an $800,000 private pension plan just for you, but you got to stay with me for 10 years. So that guy is not leaving. He is not going to a competitor, because even if he goes to a competitor, it's going to pay him, 5%, 10% more. He's not going to walk away from this golden pool of money, if you will, waiting for him. So the top part is what the employer had to put in to fund it. he had to put in 17 grand a year, 17.5 a year for 20 years. And so that was sort of a bonus that went out, that was allocated to this key employee. And that was his way of funding that $800,000 liability down the road. And it's worked out beautifully. This guy's, been with the company for, 4 years since he put this in. He couldn't be happier. He feels like he's gotten something super special just for him. He ain't going anywhere. And if he does, then, all the money that the employers put away goes right back into the business. Employee is not entitled to anything. It's got a 10-year vesting schedule, and it's a real incentive, not just for this guy, but other clients have thrown this out there as a way of enticing or attracting, recruiting, good talent. And instead of just offering them a good salary and a 401k and health insurance, this is something special above and beyond that you can do if you have the right set of circumstances. So I think the last slide is just really a quick comment, and I'm turning this over to Rich in a second, about some estate planning changes that are coming down the road. Regardless of what happens in Congress, Biden wants estate taxes to be more severe. He wants the estate exemption to go from $11 million a person to $3.5 million. Don't think he'll get his way and get down that low, but some changes are coming even if he doesn't get his way, because Trump's $11 million exemption per person is changing in about 5 years. So we help a lot of our clients and work with their trust and estate attorneys to put together asset protection trusts to protect their assets from lawsuits, creditor claims, divorce. So there are a number of techniques. This is a little bit off the beaten path of tax, year-end tax favored ideas, tax efficient ideas, but it's not just about what you earn and what you grow and what you manage, but it's what you keep and what you preserve. So I wanted to throw this one quick slide up there and just make sure we don't forget about the importance of protecting our assets. So with that, I think I'm going to turn it over to Rich, and I'll let you take it away, Rich.
Thank you very much. Very informative. And we'll get to that part, how we incorporate the use of your valued services along with our tax planning strategies are heavily geared towards, wealth preservation and utilizing the tools you've discussed. But we'll get to what's been a very prominent matter in 2020, obviously due to the coronavirus, are the PPP loans that the government has put out through your bank or various institutions if your bank was not hosting that program. And now we're really at the end of what was originally an 8-week period was extended to a 24-week period, which has come to a conclusion for most applicants who've received the funds. And maybe if people came to the game late, they're still in their 24-week period. What our first slide shows you is the application for forgiveness is one going to apply to 2020 only, meaning you can't push this forgiveness calculation into 2021's tax year. It'll apply to 2020 only, in the sense where, if most of you haven't heard, if you've received 100% forgiveness on these loans when you go through your process, it will be a taxable event to the entity you operate through. So we've had people call us, or clients call us and say, well, I want to do this calculation next year and deal with it in 2021. It's not how it works. It'll get pushed into the 2020 year. And a strategy we would highly encourage is to get this calculation done sooner than later. Even though you're afforded a 10-month period to get it done, you want to know what your forgiveness amount is going to be, and we all hope it's going to be 100%. But if it is, it does create a tax implication for the amount of the loan. We get 100% forgiveness. We have to deal with that being 100% taxable. So again, we're encouraging that you go to your institution as soon as they open up their portals or their processes. You want to get it done sooner than later, because it leads to other strategy avenues to take. For instance, planning for your pension, if you want to up your profit sharing contributions or things of that nature. Again, we'll get into that later, but we want to encourage this process being done and not put to the back burner into the middle of 2021. You also want to, I think most people are going to be utilizing the 24-week period because the 8-week period was creating challenges that we weren't going to spend the money due to some of the shutdowns of the early part of the coronavirus. There were delays in production, and as much as the pool companies had possibly a better year than expected due to the psychological effect of people wanting to stay home and putting pools in their backyard, that's great. But there was a little bit of a delay in the time you were funded by the PPP loan to when you started using it. And that's why the government came out with an extension for an 8-week period to a 24-week period. And just to be concise there, you can only do an 8-week period for forgiveness or a 24. There's no in between. And Eric, just confirm that's correct, right?
Correct.
Okay. So you can't choose anywhere in between 8 and 24 weeks. It's one or the other. And I would say to play it safe, you go with the 24-week period. I'm not going to get more into the details of the payroll costs and what's eligible and what's not. I think that would have been solidified during the processes, and whatever comes about at the forgiveness, during the forgiveness process. Again, the 24-week period would have probably ensured most applicants receiving this money or recipients full forgiveness. And they made it much more favorable too with the allocation between payroll costs and allowable or eligible costs for rent, utilities, interest expense. They changed that ratio that was originally a 75% usage towards payroll costs to a 60% usage towards payroll costs and a 40% usage to the other eligible costs that were mentioned. So again, I'm pretty confident most of the clients we have and probably yourselves, if you did receive it, you're going to get full forgiveness. The process I'll jump to is really driven by the bank. We as accountants and advisors to our clients are really going to take a back seat to it until the banks that you want to or the institutions that provided the funding have done the process. They have their own portals and processes and requests for documentation that you'll have to put together, and they will go through their own due diligence and get the SBA approval to determine the forgiveness. And we've taken the approach that once you've gone through the process, if you don't agree with it, we'll get involved where we can help and see where there may have been a discrepancy from what you may have thought was full forgiveness. On the third bullet point that after the forgiveness process, the paid sick leave requirement, I'm not sure if people have encountered that recently. I probably will lead that more for the Q&A session. I would think if people were utilizing third-party payroll processors, we've actually utilized them as a tremendous resource for Q&A on instances where, you get asked the question, okay, I have 3 people who were exposed to somebody who had coronavirus. How do we go about handling that? What's the pay? There's certain rules that came out early in the CARES Act. And again, we can get to that in the Q&A session. But if you have an outside payroll provider such as ADP or Paychex or any of the other ones out there, they've been a very valuable, informative resource on how to handle that. And of course, they're also the ones reporting it on the payroll forms. Going to the equipment purchases. This is a very useful tool for tax savings, and one of the strategies being that we handle pool companies. They use heavy equipment, heavy trucks, or things that have accelerated depreciation features that the IRS offers. My particular preference with equipment purchasing as a tax saving strategy is for cash preservation purposes. For instance, with what I said earlier in the presentation, in most cases, the PPP loans are going to convert into taxable income to the entity, and now you're faced with a situation where you had a great year, and now the PPP is going to compound the great year and leave you with a big tax burden. And one of the strategies we normally utilize, we strongly recommend going to your financial advisor and seeing where you can max out pension and deferred comp plans. That's one of the biggest ones, if not the biggest one. But then we go towards the equipment purchases, and we'll always ask our client, do you really need it? Don't just buy it to save the taxes because it's going to sit, okay? But if there is a need to enhance the fixed assets through the purchase of a backhoe, an excavator of that nature, I am of the mindset I recommend buying with debt. Interest rates are low, so if you want to go spend $75,000, let's say, on a backhoe or some kind of equipment that you need to replace or need to enhance the fleet or the equipment base, with interest rates being so low, the IRS is going to allow you a 100% deduction for that asset without paying for it, as long as it's taking into possession as a sale before the end of the year. And if you paid $1 for it, you're still going to get the $75,000 deduct without spending your cash. So you're preserving cash, you're protecting it from the tax bill. The one thing you have to discuss with your advisor is New Jersey and New York and PA don't always follow the Fed with the acceleration. For instance, on that same $75,000 purchase, the state of New Jersey is going to only allow you to accelerate $25,000 of that amount, and the remaining $50,000 will be subject to normal depreciation percentages, which would be 20%, let's say, on that. So that the New Jersey depreciation would be $35,000 compared to the IRS $75,000. Still a great strategy. New Jersey rates or any of the states surrounding rates in this area are less than the IRS rates of 30+% in most instances. So we highly recommend looking at potential equipment purchases and utilizing financing. It's not, hearing an accountant say, don't buy it and have debt on it. I think debt is good because it preserves cash and saves on the tax bill and keeps liquidity for things like the pension contribution that would be accrued at the end of the year and can be, moved into the next year as well. So equipment purchases are a very valuable tool, but I think in mind with this year, especially with the PPP loans being taxable or could be taxable, that has become more prominent of a strategy or prevalent strategy than we have done in most years. Because if you don't do any planning and protecting that bottom line, you're giving the government some odd percent of that PPP money right back. And you want to make sure, like I said earlier in the presentation, that you get that calculation sooner than later. Don't defer it all the way to the deadline of 10 months. You want that done as soon as you can, because we don't know how quickly the banks are going to be ready to turn that around as well. They're not going to press the button and get it right back to you. So that's a very strong recommendation. It stems into other strategies, like we said, into equipment. There's, so our two biggest strategies for year-end planning, just in summation, summarizing, is the pension, meeting with your financial advisor and understanding all the different avenues you can to get the pension max as high as possible for yourselves and your key employees, because that's a great tool for, obviously, wealth preservation, as we said, and employee retention, which is key. In your business especially, it's a very highly technical business, and you need to keep your top people.
Great points, Rich.
We keep it simple. everyone. We're not very complicated. I'm not trying to undermine, the importance of it, but those are two very basic strategies because most of the companies I feel that we deal with in the industry are cash method taxpayers. Okay, which means whatever cash you've accumulated, you're going to pay tax on during the calendar year. And using strategies like the depreciation rules called the Section 179 or the special allowances, those accelerated depreciation methods allow you to keep the cash in your company and not spend it and help you get into the next year with a nice balance to start the season. Common mistakes that we see if you don't talk to the advisors that you have, buying inventory for the next season is not a deduction. Okay, you're spending cash, but the IRS is not affording you that deduction technically. Okay, so even if you had it in your profit and loss on your tax return and you were to be audited, they probably would disallow that if they saw it was a sizable buildup at the end of the year of expenses that were not utilized until the revenue was generated in the following. So yes, you hear the informal people, conversation, run your cash balances down. That's technically not allowed unless it's run down on legitimate year-end things like bonuses, pension contributions, things of that nature.
The only issue then that sort of is a challenge to that is there's become with every industry that equipment can be difficult to get. And with the uncertainty in what's going on, I think a lot of people are hoarding, for lack of a better term, and purchasing equipment and stocking and increasing their inventory for next season. Because if you don't, there could be a challenge whether you'll have the product to create the revenue. So I think that's going to be an interesting topic of how you're going to try and deal with that creatively. So it's not just an expense that's going to end up adding to your bottom line.
Well, we don't like to use the word creative, Isaac, with all due respect. It's, we as advisors can't say, go build up your inventory 100,000, knock your cash down, because realistically, it's not a deduction in the year you've built the inventory up. So I'm going to give you the textbook approach on that. It's not a tax saving strategy. It's it's more about having, put the tax side of it to the left, but you need the material and the supplies to run your business and not get caught in a supply chain shortfall. That's a whole different strategy.
Right,
but it's not necessarily a tax saving strategy.
Right. I mean, I don't know if anything's going to change or if there'll be an allowance, but part of the PPP stipulations was uncertainty of what revenue would be. But if you don't have inventory, your revenue can be completely uncertain because you have nothing to sell. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I don't know how you go about it. All I'm saying is it's definitely going to be a concern because I would tell you a lot of people are bringing in a lot of inventory.
Well, I would make this suggestion, and we're starting to get into the minutiae of strategy. If you're building up inventory with a concern that there'll be a supply chain issue later on, and you don't want to get caught with what we call phantom income, let's just say you buy $100,000 worth of inventory that's not deductible because we haven't sold it yet. So just use that in mind. I'm talking strictly with cash method taxpayers. Then I would say, hey, why don't we preserve? We can offset that potential phantom income with our pension contribution can be accrued and be deductible, but not have to be funded until the following year by the due date of the tax return, and that can take all the way to September of the following year. So that's the utilization of your pension. You don't have to use the cash at the end of the year. You can preserve that cash and pay that pension contribution with next year's cash flow. So so it gives you a little bit of time and utilize that deduction. But it really, what my main concerns are with RMG and its clients right now is to make sure we know what that PPP forgiveness amount is going to do to our bottom lines. Because if we don't know what that is, and some of these the clients will be easy numbers. They'll say, yeah, you know what? I know I spent it. I did it right. I'll trust that and put it in the income, and then the strategy start. But there are some iffy areas here where the PPP creates some cash flow problems for the client. Per se, let's say, and hopefully this isn't the case here, but in the event you got 200,000 in the PPP and you actually lost money of just say 50 grand, and you spent all your PPP money, when they add it back, you go from a $50,000 loss to a $150,000 profit, and just say it costs you 30 or 40 grand in tax, you don't have the money anymore. So the emphasis on getting that under control sooner than later is I can't express how important that is. And the use of deductions that we can pay next year, such as our pension contribution and long-term debt with our equipment purchases, we're buying deductions today before the end of December without spending cash. That's the big thing. And if we have to buy inventory that you may not be able to deduct on your P&L, we'll offset it with purchases of things that we can get the Section 179 depreciation deduction on to nullify the tax bill.
Yep.
Or reduce it.
Yeah, this is Todd. I just want to chime in. Rich, that I think is a great, it's a great point with, you can fund the 401ks and some of those profit sharing and certainly the pension in the next year. So great point on that. But another point with equipment and things, I'm not the CPA or anything, but I know, through Ron and myself and our firm, we have pretty strong relationships with, Bank of New York, where our investment money is, or Charles Schwab, and they actually have nice lending programs. So if there's corporate money out there, some people have corporate money on their balance sheet, you can lend against that now. We're seeing rates 2.5, 1.9. You can lock these in for 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. Some of them are variable, some of them are fixed. So there's food for thought, because like you were saying before, Rich, interest rates are low. Sometimes it's better to have that money making you 3 or 4 when it can be charging you 1 or 2. And still buy that stuff. So it's certainly something we can help with if you're looking for that.
Yes, that's again, our strategies are to preserve cash.
Yep.
And get to the next year, because, and I use this example all the time to clients, I'd rather have $1 million in cash and $1 million in debt than no cash and no debt. You can't do anything with that. You can't operate. And the cost of money is very cheap. It's extremely cheap. So sometimes there's clients that do not want debt, but I'd rather preserve cash for payroll and the startup of the season when it's there. Because if you don't have it, you probably got to go to your line anyway, and then you really didn't accomplish much. So that's a big strategy. Cash liquidity going into the season, especially with you guys. It's a seasonal business, and can't always rely on the deposits up front. We don't know what 2021's deposits are going to look like as far as opening the season. I'm assuming it's going to be positive based on the amount of pool construction that went on and will probably continue. But that's, again, that's always been our strategy, utilizing the pension and the depreciation accelerations with the combination of low interest debt, and it keeps us liquid, keeps our clients liquid.
There's good debt.
And one other thing to note with planning strategies is and not to get too much into the politics of it, but if the Senate turns to Democratic, it's pretty sure the Biden tax plan will get approved. And the first immediate change is going to be the elimination of that 20% qualified business deduction. So we enjoyed that since the last administration took office. If you made 100,000, you pay tax on 80. You made 200, you pay tax on 160. That's going to go away if that changes. So just some things that food for thought. If there's any deferral strategies in there that, this might be a more favorable tax year to take that bite.
You see, there's a question in the Q&A. I don't know if any of you guys want to address that.
Didn't see it.
From Sean.
I think that's probably a good one for Rich about
Yep.
EIDL amounts.
So this is Eric Brodsky from Rich Mazzeo's office. So the EIDL is technically the first $10,000, if you were part of that program, that you got that $10,000 grant, is technically a grant. However, it just gets reduced from your forgiveness portion of the PPP. So if you got a $200,000 PPP, you have a $10,000 grant, your forgiveness is only the $190,000.
But you don't have to pay the grant back.